90-Day Fiancé. The Other Way fans are currently enjoying the tell-all episodes and figuring out where all the couples stand with each other now that the dramatic episodes have finished airing. While Corona and Ingi seemed like one of the most solid couples this season, they shocked viewers at the reunion not only with their breakup, but also because they're on very clearly tense terms. Ingi even walked off camera before Corona had a chance to confront him. Corona had given up a lot to move to Iceland, more than just her family and friends. She had been accepted into the University of Pennsylvania's midwifery program, one of the most competitive programs at the Ivy League school. She ultimately chose not to attend, rather opting to move abroad to be with the so-called love of her life. Corona tried applying to a local university in Iceland, but quickly learned she wouldn't be able to train as a midwife until she had a better grasp of the language, something which could take years to do. Perhaps most concerning, though, was Ingi's reaction to Corona's struggles. Not only did he not seem to get how big a deal it was that she turned down UPenn, but he also seemed nonchalant and unemotional when she told him that going to school in Iceland wasn't an option at the moment. This should have been a major red flag to Corona, and seems to foreshadow their eventual breakup. It's clear Corona made a big mistake this season giving up her education for a man. Hopefully, her acceptance to UPenn still holds. Corona's decision doesn't make sense. Following your heart can seem like an admirable thing to do, but it's not always the right thing. Sacrificing your education for a relationship, especially one you're still uncertain about, doesn't seem like a smart decision. Corona may have been book smart, but when it comes to matters of the heart, she seemed to be lacking wisdom. Ingi expressed reluctance to get married and appeared uncertain about their future, even though Corona had just made a huge sacrifice of moving internationally to be with him. There's also the question of why Corona didn't complete the midwifery program at the University of Pennsylvania and make the move to Iceland later. This could have allowed her to get her degree while working on her language skills, so she could improve before moving to Iceland and starting a midwifery career there. Moreover, most universities give an option to defer acceptance, so she may have been able to put off the program for a while and complete it at a later date, like if she regretted her decision to go to Iceland, which she eventually did. There are ways Corona could have compromised and not had to completely give up her education for Ingi. To be fair, continuing to do long distance with Ingi could have been challenging, especially since his loyalty was questioned during this season. But it may have been a better option. Corona and Ingi also never seemed to consider the possibility of him moving to the United States, even if just temporarily while Corona finished her schooling, which could have been a fair compromise. Perhaps it was due to Ingi's career or his lack of desire to live abroad, but the expectation to make sacrifices for the relationship always seemed to fall on Corona. Ingi's detached attitude was on full display when Corona told him that a guidance counselor at an Icelandic university shot down her hopes of studying locally and told her that her career and academic prospects in the country were low due to the language barrier. Instead of sympathizing or offering solutions, Ingi seemed indifferent, showing a side of him that fans couldn't ignore. Fans question Corona's story. There's been discussion about the credibility of Corona's story. One 90-Day fan raised doubts on Reddit, arguing that the details don't add up. They referenced how Corona checked the score of her nurse licensing exam during a scene at a restaurant, suggesting she didn't have the experience required to get into such a prestigious program like UPenn. They also questioned her claim that the program only takes 16 students a year, saying the number seems to be a bit too low to believe. The op further argued that Corona's emphasis on the University of Pennsylvania being Ivy League was an attempt to boost her credibility and make her look better, especially when faced with the admission she gave up her schooling for a guy she knew for under a year. They also noted that her request to do the interview at the Icelandic University in English reflected her unrealistic expectations. Corona should have known that speaking Icelandic would be essential to working in the country's healthcare system. She could have figured it out ahead of time with a little bit of research. These inconsistencies cast doubt on her narrative, and make her decision to move abroad to be with Ingi seem all the more ill-advised. Ingi may have been charming at first. He wooed many fans at the beginning of the season. Corona's story serves as a cautionary tale as to why you shouldn't ignore red flags in your relationship. especially if you're the one making a big sacrifice. If Ingi truly cared about her, he would have encouraged her to prioritize her education and found a way to support her academic goals without compromising their relationship. His indifference and lack of involvement seem to suggest the relationship was one-sided. Ultimately, Corona should have never given up something as important as her education for someone who clearly wasn't as committed as she was. While Corona's mistakes make for compelling TV, they're also a valuable lesson for viewers and a reminder to prioritize your well-being in relationships.